Few horror films linger in the mind the way The Shining does. Its atmosphere is cold and unsettling. The hotel feels endless and unfamiliar, and even quiet moments carry a sense that something's deeply wrong. Undeniably, Stanley Kubrick's vision turned a haunted hotel into a labyrinth of fear that has fascinated audiences for over 40 years. What secrets linger behind the film? Stay tuned as we uncover 25 chilling secrets, plus an extra one that covers one of the most controversial scenes in film history that'll change the way you view the film forever. Number 1. Shelley Duvall's real-life torment. Few performances in horror feel as raw as Shelley Duvall's portrayal of Wendy Torrance, and that's because much of her fear came from the production itself. Kubrick pushed her harder than anyone else on set, often isolating her from the rest of the crew and demanding a constant state of distress. Day after day, she was required to cry, scream, and look terrified, and the toll was severe. Her body reacted to the unrelenting stress. She became dehydrated, and her hair began to fall out in clumps. Even decades later, Duvall spoke about how draining the role had been, calling it one of the hardest experiences of her life. Watching the film today, her wide eyes and trembling voice are haunting, not only for what Wendy's enduring in the story, but for what the actress endured in reality to bring it to the screen. Number 2, a world record in torturous takes. One of the most grueling moments in film history happened on the staircase of the Overlook Hotel. Stanley Kubrick demanded perfection from his actors. For the scene where Wendy waves a baseball bat at Jack, that meant retaking it again and again. By the time the cameras finally stopped, the number had climbed to 127 takes, most ever recorded for a scene with dialogue. Shelley Duvall's hands were blistered from holding the bat, her voice cracked from constant screaming, and she was so drained that her body began to give out. The Guinness World Records still list this as an unmatched achievement in sheer repetition. Watching the final cut, her terror doesn't feel acted, as so much of it was raw exhaustion of an actress who'd been pushed far beyond her limits. Number 3, mountains of paper for one scene. When Wendy stumbles across Jack's manuscript, the chilling reveal comes in the form of endless pages repeating the phrase, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." What looks like a simple prop was actually the result of months of effort. Kubrick demanded that every page be fully typed, not just the handful shown to the camera. His secretary was tasked with creating around 500 pages, all carefully varied with different layouts, line breaks, and even typos that make the madness feel authentic. Some pages had the words stacked in neat paragraphs, others spilled across the paper like the ramblings of a mind unraveling. It's a blink and you miss it detail, yet it perfectly sells Jack's descent and shows the obsessive lengths Kubrick went to for realism. Even the props in The Shining carry the same unsettling weight as the story itself. Number 4, an entire hotel set burned down. The overlooked hotel you see in the movie was never a real building inside. It was a massive set built at Elstree Studios in England. Kubrick wanted complete control over the environment, so the production recreated long hallways, grand ballrooms, and that unforgettable lobby inside a soundstage. The effort was enormous, and the set became one of the largest ever built in Britain at the time. Then disaster struck. A fire swept through the soundstage and destroyed much of the carefully constructed hotel. The loss caused delays and forced the crew to rebuild large sections from scratch. Some at the time joked that the production itself seemed cursed, adding yet another eerie layer to a film already surrounded by unsettling stories. In the end, the rebuilt Overlook became so convincing that many viewers still believe they're looking at a real hotel interior. Number 5, the maze snow was fake and flammable. The climactic chase through the snowy hedge maze looks like it was filmed in a freezing wilderness, but every bit of it was created on a soundstage. To cover the maze, the crew used a staggering mix of salt and crushed styrofoam, over 900 tons in total. Under the hot studio lights, the material created an uncomfortable environment for the actors and a serious fire hazard. The cast and crew worked under intense conditions, breathing in floating particles while trudging through the fake snow that clung to everything. Despite the dangers, the result is one of the most memorable finales in horror history. The maze feels endless, the cold looks bone deep, and Jack Nicholson's frostbitten appearance sells the terror. What viewers see as a snowy nightmare was really an exhausting and risky achievement in movie-making craft. Number 6, the creepy soundtrack is real classical music. The unsettling soundscape of The Shining didn't come from a traditional film score. Instead, Kubrick filled the movie with avant-garde pieces from modern classical composers. The work of Krzysztof Penderecki, Georgi Ligeti, and Bela Bartok plays throughout, each piece chosen for its ability to unsettle the ear. The music's jagged, harsh, and often without melody, making it feel closer to a nightmare than a soundtrack. These compositions weren't written for horror, yet their atonal and chaotic style gave the film an atmosphere unlike anything audiences heard before. When paired with the long, empty hallways of the Overlook, Music amplifies the sense that the hotel itself is alive. To this day, the score is studied as an example of how sound alone can disturb and keep viewers uneasy from the first frame to the last. Number 7, the impossible geography of the Overlook. The Overlook Hotel in The Shining looks solid and believable, yet its layout's full of contradictions that make no sense once you study them. Stanley Kubrick designed the sets to be deliberately disorienting, always leading to places that shouldn't exist. Windows appear where no outside wall could possibly be, and rooms shift in ways that defy logic. One of the clearest examples is the manager's office, which has a bright window looking out onto the mountains. Based on the hotel's structure, the office should be buried in the middle of the building with no access to natural light. These impossible details were carefully planned. The result is a space that feels subtly wrong to the viewer, adding to the unease without anyone fully realizing why. The hotel itself becomes a trickster, twisting reality at every turn. Number 8, the Grady twins weren't actually twins. Few images from The Shining are as haunting as the two girls who stand side by side in the hallway, staring silently at Danny. They've become known everywhere as the Grady twins. Yet the story behind them tells a different detail. In the film, Ullman, the hotel manager, describes the caretaker's daughters as being about 8 and 10 years old. That line suggests they weren't meant to be identical twins at all. Kubrick, however, cast Lisa and Louise Burns, real-life identical twins, to play the roles. The choice made their presence even more unsettling, with their matching dresses and lifeless stares cementing them as horror icons. Whether intentional or not, the contradiction only adds to the eerie, dreamlike quality of the Overlook Hotel. Number 9, the disappearing chair. Early in the film, when Jack meets with the hotel manager Stuart Ullman in his office, a small detail slips through that has fascinated fans for years. Behind Jack, a chair is clearly visible in one shot. The camera shifts angles and suddenly the chair is gone. A moment later, it reappears as if nothing happened. To most productions, this would look like a continuity error, but in The Shining, details like this fuel the unsettling sense that the Overlook itself is unstable. Viewers have debated whether it was simply a mistake or if Kubrick intentionally allowed the inconsistency to remain. The disappearance lines up with the film's larger theme of a hotel that bends reality with rooms and spaces that don't obey logic. Even something as ordinary as a chair adds to the creeping feeling that nothing inside the Overlook can be trusted. Number 10, Here's Johnny was improvised. Few lines in horror history are as unforgettable as Jack Nicholson bursting through the bathroom door with an axe and shouting, "Here's Johnny!" What many viewers don't know is that it was never in the script. Nicholson borrowed the phrase from Ed McMahon, the announcer on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, who introduced Carson the same way every night. Stanley Kubrick, who'd been living in England for years, wasn't familiar with the reference. Still, when he heard Nicholson deliver it, he instantly knew it worked. The line stuck and the scene became one of the most iconic moments in film. Today, it's often quoted even by people who've never even seen The Shining. Number 11, red rum is revealed through a mirror. Few moments in The Shining are as chilling as Danny's quiet chant of red rum. The word first appears when he writes it in large, scrawled letters across a door. To anyone watching, it seems nonsensical until Wendy catches a glimpse of it reflected in a mirror. Suddenly, the letters reverse, spelling out murder. The instant twist turns a child's eerie scribble into a terrifying warning of what's to come. The simplicity of the reveal is part of what makes it so powerful. There's no grand effect or complicated setup, only a single word flipped in a reflection. It cemented red rum as one of horror's most iconic phrases, instantly recognizable to audiences everywhere. Even those who haven't seen the film often know the word, proof of how deeply this small detail carved itself into popular culture. Number 12, foreshadowing with the color red. Throughout The Shining, the color red acts like a silent warning that something terrible is about to unfold. It shows up in the most chilling moments, creating a visual thread that ties the supernatural and violent events together. The infamous elevator scene where torrents of blood flood the hall is the most obvious example. Jack's red jacket, Danny's red clothing before his visions, and the bright scarlet tiles in the room 237 bathroom are others. Each appearance of the color seems to signal danger, madness, or death lurking nearby. Kubrick used it with surgical precision, not as decoration, but as a way to keep the audience tense without them always knowing why. Number 13, the unexplained man in the bear suit. One of the most disturbing images in The Shining comes without warning. Wendy runs through the halls of the Overlook and suddenly glimpses a man in a bear-like costume crouched over another guest. The shot only lasts a moment, yet it unsettles viewers more than any of the film's longer scenes. Kubrick pulled it from a minor subplot in Stephen King's novel, where a wealthy guest had a strange relationship with a man dressed as an animal. In the movie, there's no context, no explanation, only a flash of something bizarre and grotesque. That lack of clarity is exactly what makes it unforgettable. The bare-suited figure has fueled endless debate, with interpretations ranging from hints of abuse to the Overlook's twisted hold on its guests. What was once a tiny detail in the book became one of horror cinema's most haunting mysteries. Number 14, the child actor was protected from the horror. Danny Lloyd, the boy who played Danny Torrance, was only 6 years old during filming. Stanley Kubrick knew the story was far too intense for a child, so he carefully shielded him from the darker side of the production. Scenes were staged in ways that kept Danny away from anything frightening, and he believed he was acting in a family drama about life in a hotel. Even the iconic red rum sequence was filmed without Danny knowing its full meaning. To preserve his innocence, Kubrick made sure the crew treated him gently and never revealed the movie's terrifying context. Danny Lloyd grew up without realizing he'd starred in one of the most unsettling films ever made, only discovering the truth when he finally saw the complete movie at age 16. Number 15, the Gold Room Ghostly Party. When Jack wanders into the Gold Room, he steps into another era entirely. The once empty ballroom suddenly fills with music, chatter, and guests dressed in glamorous 1920s fashion. These spirits aren't portrayed as monsters or grotesque figures. They appear as ordinary people frozen in time, continuing their endless party as though the hotel never stopped breathing. Many interpret these ghostly guests as the souls of the wealthy and powerful who once frequented the Overlook, trapped there long after death. The scene creates a chilling contrast with the silence of the rest of the hotel, showing that the building holds on to its past and refuses to let go. By the time Jack fully embraces the Overlook's influence, the Gold Room becomes his gateway, luring him deeper into the hotel's dark embrace and sealing his fate. Number 16, the bartender's ominous name. One of the most memorable figures Jack meets in the Overlook is the bartender, Lloyd. Calm, well-dressed, and perfectly polite, he serves drinks as though nothing about the situation's unusual. The choice of name adds to the unsettling effect. Lloyd is plain and ordinary, the kind of name you wouldn't expect to carry menace. Yet in the Overlook, it belongs to a ghost who becomes Jack's enabler, fueling his descent with whiskey and conversation. Lloyd never raises his voice or makes threats, but his presence is eerie because of how normal he appears in a setting that is anything but. Many viewers see him as a symbol of the hotel itself, welcoming on the surface while quietly tightening its grip. Through Lloyd, the Overlook whispers to Jack, nudging him further down the path toward madness and violence. Number 17, the room number change. In Stephen King's novel, The Haunted Room is 217. When Kubrick adapted the story for film, that number was switched to 237. The reason came down to the Timberline Lodge in Oregon, which was used for the exterior shots of the Overlook Hotel. Hotel staff asked Kubrick not to use 217, worried guests would avoid the real room if it was linked to a horror story. Since there was no room 237 in the lodge, the change was approved. Ironically, the opposite effect happened. Room 217 became the most requested room at the Timberline, while the invented 237 took on a legendary status among fans of the movie. That simple decision to alter one number helped create one of the most infamous hotel rooms in cinematic history, forever tied to the unsettling mysteries of The Shining. Number 18, the Real Haunted Hotel. The seeds of The Shining were planted in 1974, when Stephen King and his wife Tabitha stayed at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. It was the last night before the hotel shut down for the winter, and they were nearly the only guests in the massive building. The long, empty hallways and the eerie silence left a strong impression on King. That night he dreamed of his young son running through the halls, screaming while being chased by a fire hose that had come to life. He woke in a cold sweat, sat by the window smoking, and began to piece together the story of the Overlook Hotel. The Stanley Hotel later embraced its connection to the novel and film, leaning into its reputation as a haunted landmark. For fans of The Shining, it remains a real-world destination tied forever to horror history. Number 19, King disliked the portrayal of Wendy. Stephen King's criticism of The Shining wasn't only about Jack Torrance, it also extended to Wendy. In his novel, Wendy's resilient, resourceful, and determined to protect her son no matter the cost. She's written as a strong character who balances Jack's decline with her own fight for survival. In Kubrick's film, however, Wendy's portrayed very differently. Played by Shelley Duvall, she spends most of the movie overwhelmed, crying, and reacting with fear rather than strength. King was outspoken about his disappointment, saying the film reduced her to what he called a screaming dish rag. For him, this change stripped away one of the core dynamics of the story, where Wendy's strength is meant to contrast with Jack's unraveling. To this day, King's frustration with how Wendy was adapted is one of the strongest reasons for disliking Kubrick's version. Number 20, Stephen King hates this movie. For many fans, The Shining is a masterpiece of horror. Stephen King, the author of the novel, has never shared that view. The moment Kubrick's version was released, King was openly critical of it. His The main complaint centered on Jack Nicholson's performance. King felt that Nicholson played Jack Torrance as unhinged from the very beginning, removing the tragic arc of a good man slowly losing his grip on reality. To King, this shift betrayed the heart of the story, turning it into something far colder than what he'd written. Over the years, he repeated his dislike in interviews and even created his own television miniseries in the 90s that stayed closer to the original novel. Number 21, the film ignores the book's biggest monster. In Stephen King's novel, the grounds of the Overlook Hotel hold one of its most unsettling features: animal-shaped topiaries that come to life. These hedge creatures stalk and attack, symbolizing the hotel's malevolent power in a very direct way. When Stanley Kubrick brought the story to the screen, he made the choice to leave them out. Special effects in the late 1970s weren't advanced enough to make moving hedges believable, and Kubrick was unwilling to risk the result looking unconvincing. Instead, he introduced something new: the hedge maze. It provided both a haunting atmosphere and a stage for the film's tense finale between Jack and Danny. Number 22, the opening shots were a second-unit masterpiece. The sweeping shots that open The Shining set the tone before a single word is spoken. A yellow Volkswagen Beetle winds along mountain roads as the camera soars high above, capturing the car's tiny presence against vast, rugged landscapes. Those images weren't filmed by Kubrick himself. The second-unit team spent weeks in Montana, flying over mountains and lakes to capture the haunting beauty that would introduce the Overlook. Later, some of this footage was reused in television broadcasts of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which led to confusion over where it originated. For The Shining, those shots do more than establish location. They create an immediate sense of isolation. By the time the Torrance family reaches the hotel, the audience already feels the weight of distance, as though the world behind them has been completely left behind. Number 23, the hidden Native American genocide theme. One of the most discussed interpretations of The Shining is that it serves as an allegory for the genocide of Native Americans. This reading begins with the line that the Overlook Hotel was built on an Indian burial ground. Kubrick filled the sets with Native American motifs: rugs patterned with tribal designs, artwork on the walls, and even cans of Calumet baking powder stacked in the pantry. The brand name itself refers to a ceremonial pipe, which adds to the symbolism. When combined with the hotel's history of violence and its hunger for new victims, many see it as Kubrick's commentary on America's past, where wealth and progress came at a brutal cost. While Kubrick never confirmed this interpretation, clues are too consistent to dismiss easily, making it one of the most enduring theories about what the Overlook truly represents. 24, the film's original ending was cut. Kubrick's original version of The Shining ended in a way hardly anyone has seen. After Jack's death, the story didn't just fade out at the hotel. Instead, there was an extra scene set in a hospital, where Wendy and Danny recover from their ordeal. The hotel manager visits, assuring Wendy that nothing out of the ordinary was found. No corpses, no proof of what happened in the Overlook. It's a scene that pulls the story back toward reality, leaving room for doubt about the supernatural. But Kubrick changed his mind at the last minute, removing the sequence right before wide release. The missing ending lets the Overlook's mysteries hang in the air, leaving viewers stranded in its nightmare with no final reassurance. Number 25, the Apollo 11 conspiracy theory. One of The Shining's wildest legacies is the Apollo 11 conspiracy theory. Some viewers claim Kubrick hid clues throughout the film as a secret confession that he helped fake the moon landing for NASA. The evidence? Danny's Apollo 11 sweater, mysterious Room 237, supposedly matching the distance to the moon, 237,000 miles, and strange patterns on the carpet that resemble NASA launch pads. Fans point at these details as coded messages, arguing Kubrick used the film to reveal his involvement without saying a word. There's no real proof, just the kind of over-the-top speculation that makes The Shining even more of a pop culture puzzle. In the end, the conspiracy survives because people want to believe the Overlook holds secrets even Kubrick never explained. Number 26, the final baffling photograph. The closing image of The Shining is one of the most haunting in cinema. After Jack's frozen body is shown in the maze, the camera drifts towards a black and white photograph hanging on the Overlook's wall. It's dated July 4, 1921, showing a grand ballroom party. At the center, smiling at the camera, is Jack Torrance. The implication is that Jack has somehow always been a part of the hotel's history, absorbed into its past as one of its permanent caretakers. This ending has sparked endless debate among fans and scholars. Some interpret it as reincarnation, others as Jack's soul being claimed by the Overlook. Kubrick never explained the meaning, leaving the mystery unsolved. That deliberate ambiguity turned a single photograph into one of the most analyzed frames in horror, ensuring the story lingers long after the credits fade. And that's it. So after all these chilling secrets, one question remains. Was the Overlook Hotel simply haunted, or was it alive, feeding on everyone who stepped inside its walls? Let us know your thoughts down below, and if you thought the secrets surrounding the Overlook Hotel were scary. What do you see what's lurking behind the scenes of Friday the 13th, another horror classic? Watch our recent video to learn the film's shocking secrets and tune in for our next Classic Movie Rewind.